Well, the sooner that we are gone, we are back again. Welcome aboard and welcome back to WOR Legacy Division and the next round of this championship. We're coming at you live from the Styrian Mountains of Austria for this, our now reverse fixture of this particular event. Of course, after what was a really chaotic sprint race over on Twitch. It is myself, James Otter, alongside Joseph F1, usual co-commentary pairing for this one. Big thank you to yourself, Joseph, for taking part in that particular sprint race in my absence. Of course, a few issues getting home, but we are now here, ready and raring to go for this event. It should be an absolute cracker.
It should be. Sprint race, of course, won by ET8. If you just missed it, SCI locked out the front row, but with a bit of brute force and whatever you like to call it. ET8 did come away with the 1-2 and closed in by about 3-4 points in the championship, which of course they will take because they have been second best in every department this season and haven't quite got their win that they deserve just yet. So yeah, plenty to take. Going into the main event in Austria this evening, we're of course running backwards, which raises a lot of questions in itself. I do wonder if it could get any worse.
So here's something to show even more unprepared I am. I'm now showing you the live standings that we have over on Google Sheets, just to give you an update on the situation. So, of course, as you said, ET8 managed to close down the gap on SCI. The gap now 70 points as a result of that particular event. So, you know, it's a start for 10. They just need to start sort of cutting into that lead if they want to give themselves a chance to make sure that this league really does not become their Achilles heel. But I think, as we said last week, Joseph, SCI are a ruthless force at the moment, both in the sprint and in the main race. They have never finished lower than 5th place in this championship so far, and that is a testament just to the pure talent of the SCI team at the moment.
Yeah, formidable form, really. And another stat that I was just kind of looking through, obviously, their past history, Shizou, they took 7 wins under that name. They're already at 4 as SCI. And, of course, that Shizou name had 5 seasons. This new SCI has only had, 6 races. So, yeah, it's crazy the way they're just churning out these victories at the moment, and really does put it into perspective how good of a campaign it's been so far.
Yeah, formidable force at the moment as well. So should be an absolute cracker as well. Of course, the standings you've just seen was ordered after the sprint as well. For instance, AMR on 54 is behind RSC on 58. IRT also on 54 as well. So AMR and IRT have got a little bit of a point to prove as well. A fabulous race from Phil, actually, from IRT. As well last time out, so it should be an absolute cracker of a race ahead of us. But for this race ahead of us then, of course, here is your grid. Quantum and Agonized for McLaren. A quick reminder, of course, we saw these earlier on. You've got Luke and Mathis here for RSC, Thomas and Max at Ventauri, Dirk and Jeroen at the Shizou Cedar Igniters, Evil and Kalo for the Hadrick Racing outfit, Sergio Ryderdal are the first and second place position sitters, of course, after that fabulous sprint race from them. Vada Spinoda and Phil for IRT, Ivan S. Greg and White Sheep AMR. You've got Semi and Cimarox, one for QRT, and then Misha and Olex down at the back with the Lean Green Machines. That is the Kicksauber EVR team. We're going to head over, if you don't mind, to the live footage now, because we are just about getting going now into the short qualifying of this event. So, you know, early indications in this one, Joseph, you caught more of the sprint race than I did, because I was on the X17 home probably when you were just starting that one. But for yourself here, it suggested immediately out the blocks that ET8 have started to get a little bit of a know-how, a bit of brain power being used in their race strategy now. When Dirk was going for the overtake, they worked with each other and managed the race pace, and they've managed to take a 1-2 as a result. They've got some learnings to take now through the rest of the season. If they can replicate that, they might put SCI under some pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, SCI kind of slowed the pace down a little bit to try and get into that 1-2 position, and ET8 just saw it as a way to capitalise and just get both cars through and turn up the wick, really. So, you know, there were pros and cons to that approach from SCI, and they have just found potentially a little weakness in that. 1 lap pace, though, SCI were exceptional, we know that, but ET8, as always, and as has been the case, in qualifying sessions this season, not too far behind. They're level on pole positions with 2 apiece, and it could well swing either way, more than likely for each team or one of the 2 teams to get a third. So really fascinating.
Really fascinating indeed. So, here is the question for yourself now, Joseph, as all of the drivers are now heading on the reverse circuit around here as well, and one hell of a gimmick that F125 has brought for this little gimmick league in the WR Legacy division. They're now heading around in the wrong direction for this one short qualifying. And 18 minutes ahead of us now as the drivers will get themselves ready and raring to go ahead, of course, of the main race. Exactly the same race laps, just in the wrong direction here. I'm expecting a race of high attrition here, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I was saying on the sprint stream that, these corners that we've seen the drivers lunge into, notably turn 3 and 4 in the correct direction. I need a reverse track map for the exact numbers in the wrong direction. But they're blind, going into what would be turn 4 here. It's an uphill braking zone, and, they'll be prone to lockups there. It's a bit Bahrain-esque as they swing left going into the corner. Of course, what would be turn 3, you don't see it because, of course, it's uphill. Usually on the exit, it's downhill. You can't see the apex until pretty much you arrive there. So, they're going to have to be cautious, but at the same time, they could very easily get caught napping in the race, and they've got to strike a balance between the 2. So, yeah, this will be very interesting. Rewire your brains, everybody, because seeing this for the first time in a competitive sense, at least for me, commentating, is going to be odd, but we'll soon get used to it. We've got 18 minutes to adapt.
Yeah, we're going to keep an eye on here as the drivers have not got that much time to adapt because, of course, they've got to get used to these laps as quickly as they possibly can. Here's what was turn number 5 for Jerome here as he now approaches the top of the hill. He'll take this left hand. He'll want to go for the late break and lunge into the corner. He has missed his apex. Tank slapper well held from the Mercedes. That's the SCI team, of course. Heading now down towards what would be turn number 3 as he brakes as late as he possibly can. It's a bit of a blind crest, that corner now, as a result of that as well. So you've got to make sure you hit your braking markers absolutely bang on. Happy to take a lot of the green stuff on the right-hand side before he chucks the car to the left and then back to the right again. Brake at about 80 metres. Chuck the car through the left-hander. Try not to track extend. I'm not sure if he's managed to get away with that one. Here comes Jerome as he comes across the line right now. And he will set an initial lap time of 103.4. But again, very up in the air about whether or not that's going to be a decent lap time because we're not quite sure ourselves with this our first altercation around this circuit. All we do know is Sergio has shown immediate pace at ET8 that he could beat that one, but all 3 drivers that have set a lap time are in the 103.4s. Samuel Barker 103.6, Alex 104.3. Here's Dirk. Will he be able to set a lap time? It would have been invalidated by the looks of things with the 114X. So we'll see then as he comes across what is now turn 2 as he now heads around this circuit. But you'd expect people are not going to just do 1 in, 1 out. I think there's going to be a few laps initially just to get used to the track here because, of course, there'll be plenty of practice here, Joseph, but sneaking suspicion here that they're going to try and eke out as much of this time as they can to try and get as much practice as they can.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe shave off one of those. Sometimes drivers like to have 4 sets of tyres for this session. Maybe it's worth doing 3 and then just doing back-to-back laps just to get used to the track a little bit more. Here we go then with Dirk flicking the car into the left-hander. I think he converted his to a double out lap. Plenty of battery now to deploy down the straight and down to what would be turn 1. The final corner on the track this time around at turn 10. Oh, that was clean as a whistle, wasn't it? Stays within the white lines on exit. Has enough battery to deploy all the way to the timing beam. And of course, that is a long way down the straight. It's important you leave yourself some battery for that. I'm sure the drivers know full well to do so. But he did go quickest, about a tenth and a half quicker than rival Sergio at this stage.
Yeah, clean as a whistle, sharp as a thistle, best in all Westminster for Dirk there as he comes fastest with a 1:03.255. Here's Ventari's Thomas. He's on an invalid lap. He comes across the line. It would have been a 1:03.236. He would have gone pole with that particular lap, but Ventari's Thomas will now just, well, he's not going to be setting any further laps on this this occasion here, so we're expecting awaiting more laps from him. Very, very late on the brakes from Phil, so I don't think this is going to be a particularly representative lap time as well, and I think his ERS management has also been pretty poor as well. He's down below 10% as he approaches now into what is now the final corner of this circuit as he comes across the line with the DRS now wide open. Your start finishing line is right here, and it would be a very poor 1:04.4, so plenty of lap time still to be found for the man who actually had a cracking sprint race, to be fair, but in the other direction proving to be a little bit more of a challenge, as it is a challenge as well for Ventari's Max von der Geest, another driver struggling out there at the moment, and with an invalid lap time he will now dive into the pit lane. And I tell you what, for the main race here, Joseph, that is a very, very sharp corner, isn't it, going into the pit lane? If you get that one wrong, you're straight into the pit wall, you're out of this race.
Yeah, polar opposite, isn't it, to the way it's run in the correct direction, where you've got so much visibility and, of course, room to make a small error on the entry. You could be facing yourself an unexpected wing change if you do brake ever so slightly too late. It's basically its own little corner. It's like a Joker lap, if anything, the way that is formatted. So, yeah, another spanner into the works for this race as well. Ventari, just while on the topic of them, struggling with track limits. Max van der Geest got a 3-second time penalty in the sprint race. Thomas didn't get a lap in the sprint qualifying. That was one shot. He blew away his only chance to get a lap in. So, yeah, need to get that sorted out down at Ventari. Otherwise, they are starting this evening on the back foot.
Yeah, and critically for Ventari, both of their drivers also struggling with track limits as well on this. They're qualifying for this reverse track race, so both without a lap time to be known at the moment. Thomas ended up struggling at the same corner that Simba Rocks wanted, the final corner. And the problem is, as well as that, in qualifying trim, if you invalidate your lap at the final corner, you don't just lose this lap, you lose the next one as well, because of course your track extending as you're going towards the start finishing line, so it's a bit of a double whammy if you get that one wrong. Here is Luke, this is the RSC man. Simmerok's Ron has retired. It looks like he's retired at pit entry, and we did say that, didn't we? At that beginning of the, just literally a few minutes ago, you get that pit entry wrong, you are in the wall and you are out of this race, and QRT have lost a driver. Even Eskrig goes fastest with a 1:03.1 as we're just watching RSC's Luke get going with his lap here. Sergio just getting on with his lap as well with a 1:03.198, looking fairly sharp actually from him. How's Jerome doing as well? He's just going through the top of the hill here. So, you know what? We did say that would be one to watch. You didn't think he'd be that quickly though.
Well, I can't believe that's just happened with Simba. Even Eskrig first ahead of Sergio now, but I just flicked over to him. It hadn't said he'd retired yet, but it looks like he's just gone into the kind of Armco that separates the track from the pit lane. I don't know how that's happened. He's not crashed in the pit lane, he's crashed outside of it. But yeah, that might be another thing as well. Cars, when they want to signal to get into the pit lane, they might leave it too late and hit that outstanding wall on the divide between the tracks. So very, very unusual crash for Simba Rocks 1. He's not commented on it yet. I'm looking forward to when he does, because that is quite inexcusable, to be honest. And I'm not trying to be negative about that. I'm just suggesting of all the errors you could make on the pit entry, you crash before you even get there.
Fair play to Luke, by the way, of RSC. He's just come across the line and set a 1:03.267. He's actually gone faster than ET8's Ryderdal. So the team looking to try and maximise the performance in the hope that AMR doesn't do a decent job has got one driver on the second row as it stands. Great effort from them. Here's the McLaren. It's Team FRT, Future Racing Team's Quantum, just coming up the hill right now. He wants to try keep the car as planted as he can. Dirk going fastest for SCI, though 1:03.0 could be heading into the 1:02s imminently. I think here very, very well crafted what would be turn 4 for the Quantum here, as he's now going down that main straight as Ivan Eskrig. In fact, sorry, Max von der Geest coming across the line. P3 with a 1:03.174. Venturi, we were worried about the track limit situation, but certainly not the pace. He's only 64 thousandths down on Ivan Eskrig. It's a great effort from Max von der Geest. His teammate is on an outlap. Here, though, it is Quantum. FRT are hoping that they'll get one driver as close as they can towards the front. Samuel Barker struggling 1:1:03.6. Here's Quantum as he comes across the line right now, and he goes P6 with a 1:03.257. He's a 100th of a second faster than Luke, but he's a little bit down on QRT's Monza. The QRT have lost one driver, but they've managed to get one at least into the top 5. But plenty of opportunities for laps still coming in thick and fast at the moment. I'm wondering where Phil is. Where's Phil? He's on the back straight at the moment. Now he's struggling a little bit with his braking zones. We saw that one on the blind crest here. Will he miss it this time though? Brakes a little bit earlier on this occasion, and he's learnt his lesson. He comes into the corner now, and he'll head now down towards the final corner to set his lap for IRT. Will he be able to beat Fana Spinoda, or will he get anywhere near towards the front maybe? Phil showed he had the pace earlier on, and will he be able to reflect that one in the reverse track here? DRS wide open for the Haas Ferrari. Comes across the line right now for Phil, and he'll only go 17th fastest. Phil struggling in the reverse direction.
Yeah, we've not lost the close nature of Austria going in the wrong direction, have we? About a second field spread just under that. In fact, so far, Ventari's Thomas is out there at the minute. He is on a flyer at this stage with 7 minutes to go in the session. IRT have been a little bit cursed so far this season. Double points in both sprint races, but of course, they couldn't convert in Kota. They didn't get any points at all in the main race, so yeah, might be a similar sort of thing this evening if both cars don't get their act together here in regular qualifying. Thomas now coming down the hill. You do pick up speed rapidly there. It's a bit like a roller coaster section. That certainly aids the lap times, because when you are going forwards, you do tend to scrub off a lot of speed arriving into the braking zone with how steep it is. Thomas comes across the line and goes second. What a brilliant lap from our winner in Baku. Ventari right up there, and he has already made right the wrongs of his sprint qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely cracking from Ventari's Thomas and Max von der Geest, 2nd and 4th respectively at the moment for the team, looking to put a little bit of pressure on the front two, but with a considerable margin. Maybe the best they're going to be looking for will be P3 in the standings, but nonetheless P2 and P4 is a great effort, considering it's a little bit of a mixed bag out there. The fastest of the ET8 drivers is this man, Sergio. He's looking to try and maybe close down the gap. We'll see what it looks like versus Dirk, 1:03.192, so he improves on his lap, but he doesn't improve on his position. He stays P5 at the moment. His teammate Ryderdal down in P9. SCI Dirk leading the way in P1, but his teammate Yaron is in P11. So what an opportunity is falling on the cards here for the midfield teams to potentially earn some big points tonight, and that's exactly what this reverse track layout is basically all about. The next 3 races, all on the reverse circuit, may offer an opportunity for those that practice a little bit harder in the midfield to potentially earn some big points here tonight. And tell you what, Ventauri are the ones that are looking like they are the team to beat at the moment.
Yeah, of course, we've had some pretty surprising big points finishes in recent weeks. RSC last week, and EVR the week before, I believe it was. So yeah, exciting times. AMR as well, getting the podium. So potentially more scope for change here this evening. Here comes Jeroen. Can he get himself back to that front row where he was in sprint qualifying? No. 6th fastest. No wonder. Could there be setup changes? Could there just be an element of heightened pressure after losing a few points ground in the sprint race? All factoring in to a less positive performance, as now Ryderdal, our console tier 1 champion, goes up into P6, and both ET8 cars ahead of Jeroen there. Dirk looks unbeatable at this stage, but of course now the jeopardy on Jeroen's session.
Yeah, but it's an all ET8 third row at the moment in this qualifying, 4 minutes to go, so plenty of opportunities still to potentially improve on lap times. White Sheep just getting started with his lap in the AMR RB, so just checking the car through turn 2 now. We want to keep that as planted as he can as Loren just enters into the pit lane. Yeah, it's an all third row as it stands for ET8, not exactly the position that they're going to be happy with, but at the same time I don't think they're going to necessarily complain at a circuit of this calibre. To have the third row locked out, they could potentially dictate the pace, especially the likes of Jeroen, who is currently being out qualified at the moment by the ET8 drivers. Dirk's still leading the way though, but there's still plenty of time out to be had to improve on these lap times. I do expect a 1:02 at some point in this session here between these drivers, the best drivers at the moment that console can offer in representing their teams, as well, actually not looking to be improving on this occasion. He's half a second down on this one here, and see where Fana Spinoda is. He's 2.5 down as well, so no lap times to be had at the moment, initially anyway, as Dirk is actually improving in the second sector, 56 thousandths of a second. Will he improve, or will he extend track limits? He's gone wide, and there goes the lap time. What the lap time would have been for Dirk as he comes across the line right now? He's let off of the throttle, so we're not going to be able to see, but he was 56 thousandths down, up rather, in the second sector. So that is touching ever so gently on the fringes of 102, Joseph.
Yeah, we nearly had it there. Dirk showing that he perhaps would have undoubtedly taken pole position, but this opens up to the floor, doesn't it? A lot of people would have seen that now and gone, his session's done. We know what the target is. Let's get out there and beat it. Yeah, Dirk won't make it back. I think he's out of fuel first and foremost, and he won't have time once he gets back into the pit lane to make any further amends. That's quite astonishing time already at 103.060. 18 other cars in the circuit. We've lost Simba Rocks 1 to a pit lane collision with himself, but now, yes, a really close field spread, an opportunity for anybody to shine their name up in the hills of Austria this evening. Who's going to be first up then? It looks like an Aston Martin. It's our car that's 19th currently, C8 Lou.
Yeah, Lou on his own at the moment, down at the foot of the table. Of course, the slowest of all of the laps so far with a 103.981. Let's see what his Sector 1 looks like before we switch over and see where all the other lap times come in here. To be fair, not particularly slow, just not really pushing the limits of the track or even the car at the moment. He's found a 10th in the first sector though, so he'll improve on his own lap times, but missed apex though at the top of the hill, now going down the back straight, so definitely more lap time to be had for Lou. In fact, has he dived to the inside and has he given up on his lap? He certainly has given up on his lap, so the next person to set a lap, I believe, if I am not mistaken, will it be the McLaren? No, it will not be the McLaren. We're not quite sure at the moment, so we'll keep an eye out on Monza if you don't mind. That's a Team QRT driver in the Williams Mercedes, ever fielding the wonderful helmet of Lewis Hamilton's late dog Roscoe as well, as he now approaches the final corner. As he cuts the corner completely there, Monza's lap time not going to be setting any kind of representation as a result. Would have been a 103.6 as he's actually crashed out of qualifying in pure frustration by the looks of things as well. Are we going to see any further lap times? I believe we are going to see an improvement potentially for Max von der Geest. He's found just a bit over a 10th of a second here. Now that could actually put Dirk under a little bit of pressure here as long as he keeps within track limits, and he has done so here. So Max von der Geest here, Ventauri will be able to get a pole position out of Dirk's hands as he comes across the line. He certainly will. 103.039 finds the lap time, puts himself on pole. More lap times to be had though here. We've found Sergio. He's up 95 thousandths of a second in the second sector. Ivan Eskrig is down. Ventauri's Thomas has just got started with his lap as well. He's well off of the field. Ivan Eskrig, here he comes across the line. Ryderdal will not improve, nor will Ivan Eskrig. Sergio found 17 thousandths of a second in the second sector. He could be close here to Dirk as he comes across the line right now. Sergio with ETA. Oh, he's down in the end though, and only finds a 5th place, once again improving on lap time, but can't improve on his position. So it will be an ETA all third row. Ventauri's Thomas looking to try and set some kind of lap times alight here at the moment as well, as Matthias Guillet has just come across the line. I believe he's come across him for P11 if I'm not mistaken. In fact, it might have been the EVR driver of Misha actually. Here comes Thomas though. Here he comes then down the main straight here. Will there be any improvement at all for Ventauri's Thomas? He's found 78 thousandths of a second in the second sector and has gone purple. So is it going to be a Ventauri front row lockout here, I wonder? Coming across the final corner, a little bit more conservative here from Thomas, because of course he just would like to have a front row lockout here for Ventauri. Here he comes across the line. Oh, he snagged pole position. 103.035, 4 thousandths of a second to Max von der Geest. That'll be a personal inter-team battle. Absolutely fabulous. I don't think there's going to be any further improvements. We've got Lorenz in the pits. Luke has just entered the pit lanes as well. It's a Ventauri front row lockout for the reverse track here in Austria. What a great effort indeed it is from the midfield outfit. They've beaten SCI, they've beaten AMR, they've beaten both of the ET8s who are on the third row. And what a great effort from Team IRT as well through Fana Spinoda. Great effort from P7. Your own is only P8. That's critical, but a pole position for this man, Ventauri Thomas.
Yeah, indeed. A winner already this season. Now a pole sitter to go with it. Not a bad return in the couple of races that he has done. I'll tell you what, ET8 will welcome that a little bit because right at the end, Dirk bottling his lap at the final corner. Ventauri sweeping in to demote Dirk 2 positions and take a front row lockout for themselves. Our second of the evening involving 2 different teams. Even Eskrig up there in P4. Of course, ET8 locking out row 3. Fana Spinoda, he's come from nowhere to set the exact same time as Ryderdan. He did it second, unfortunately, so he will start 7th. Yurunis down in 8th and Monza in 9th. And then Luke and Matthias Guille on the fringes of the top 10. Quantum, that's surprising, down in P12. He was up there in sprint qualifying, but has work to do from that midfield. What an entertaining qualifying session. We love an inter-team battle. We've had 2 in one evening.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we are now on for a restart, if I'm not mistaken. So there will be a full-blown restart before we get into the main race, Joseph. Please let me know if that is the case. But in the interim, let's have a quick review of what happened at the Mexico City Grand Prix. Of course, you weren't here for that one, but it was a very, very interesting race, especially the first few laps of that race. In the end, though, SCI won 3 with ET8 2-4. So SCI managed to extend their lead in the championship with Dan finishing in P5 and Quantum in P7. It's a great result from FRT. Lucas splitting the 2 of the FRT boys, though, with RSC in P6. Then the first of the VNT driver, Ventauri, through Gavroche in P8. Kevin Zunberg, great effort from EVR for P9. And then Leon rounding out the top 10 for IRT. Olex finished in 11th from Maxime Evil, Ivan Eskrig, and then Lorenz as they get the scraps of points to Hadrick Racing alongside Team AMR. So that was the race result, and then therefore the standings ended up resulted like this. So as a result, the Shizusi Igniters were on 375, ET8 on 298 with Ventauri on 171, Future Racing Team 123. But then, of course, the sprint race has now happened, and as it stands, it's like this. So SCI are currently on 390 with ET8 on 320, so they cut the gap down to 70 points. Ventauri on 176 from FRT on 123. QRT are on 73 from AHR on 61. Then it's RSC on 58. Now, on the virtue of the fact that AMR have got a podium in Qatar, they are 8th with 54, with IRT in 9th also on 54, and then EVR at the foot of the table on 43. So that's the table as it is after the sprint race. I tell you what, though, Joseph, should be in for an absolute cracker of a race if that's got anything to go by. I'm expecting a little bit of a high attrition race. I think a few mistakes, especially if that pit lane's got anything to go by. But critically, Ventauri, they've been practicing for this one.
Yeah, evidently so. Certainly the qualifying pace anyway. I know they, again, the penalty creeping in the sprint for Max van der Geest. But that's been and gone, hasn't it? And they can reset, and what a perfect position to do so. Is there an opportunity that they can close the massive gap that they are behind at the moment? 214 points. No, probably not. Their season feels kind of run already, and it might have to settle for third. But credit to them for showing ambition and putting in that qualifying performance. That's what the division needs. You know, no stagnation. Teams always driving forward for good results, even when there is a lot of contempt about the game.
Remember that they were the NLR team last season, so of course after their rebrand, Ventauri were looking to lay down some really, really solid foundations, and I think P3 in this championship would definitely lay some solid foundations potentially for the following season. So they're thinking maybe not about the early part of this game cycle, but maybe the later half of this game cycle are Ventauri. So keep an eye out on them over the next couple of seasons, because I think they could be ones to watch as it stands anyway, with their solid performances. Of course, 2 podiums this season. I think 1 in Azerbaijan and 1 in Hungary, 1st and 3rd place respectively. And in fact, they've only scored a point. They've only been outside of the points once, and that was last time out in Mexico, of course, where their second driver finished in P18. Quick reminder then of the drivers out here tonight. Then Quantum from Agonized at FRT McLaren. You've got RSC Ferrari and Luke and Matthias. Then you have got Thomas and Max at Ventauri. Of course, our front row lockout between them And then you've got Dirk, your own at SCI. Your own really struggling at the reverse circuit here. So opportunity knocks potentially for these guys at ET8. Third row lockout for Sergio and Ryderdal with Fana Spinoda and Phil at IRT. Ivan Eskrig and White Sheep at AMR from Semi, and Simba Rocks 1 at QRT, Misha and Olix rounding out the lean green machines at EVR. We're taking a quick break before we get on for this main race, of course, the reverse circuit in the Styrian Mountains. Don't go away. Welcome back then, folks, to WOR. This is the Legacy Division. We are ready and raring to go. The drivers are just sorting out the grid now for what will be no doubt a pretty intense race ahead of us. Very quickly then on this one, Joseph, we should be in for an absolute crack of a race here. Then Towery managing to get a front row lockout. It's an all ET8 third row, and SCI for the first time pretty much all season split between driver A and driver B. Your own not showing the pace.
No, I don't quite know where that's gone between one-shot qualifying and reverse grid qualifying. Of course, they experimented with the strategy in that sprint race, so all roads kind of pointing towards maybe a little bit of an aggressive approach from him this evening. Of course, they don't want to throw away the lead that they've got that currently stands at 70 points over ET8, but well, they might have to, just to try and limit the damage on that side of the garage. In fact, both sides of the garage after Dirk invalidated his final qualifying attempts that would have put him potentially into those 102s.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's just keeping an eye out on the lobby getting going. Should be imminently, we suspect. But the bottom line is that these drivers out here now have got a very unique challenge here. This is the first time in WR Legacy Division that we are touring a circuit in the wrong direction. This is going to be a bit of an unknown, I think, for the pair of us here, because of course this is the first time we take a spin at a circuit we're all familiar with, but at the same time not particularly familiar with as well, which obviously offers a completely different sort of mindset, different perspective in the head. You think you've got all the confidence of this particular circuit, but when it's in the other direction, the layout is just completely bananas, and these drivers have got to get used to that as quickly as they possibly can. And a quick reminder, of course, not just for this one in the reverse track, we obviously are taking a trip to the Netherlands next week as well for the same situation, a sprint race in the right direction and then a reverse race in the other direction for round number 8. And then round number 9 is the final of our treble reverse headers as we take a trip to the United Kingdom at Silverstone for the reverse track of that one. Of course, a sprint race again for that one in the correct direction before we take a trip back to a little bit sense of normality at the circuits in Imola, of course, in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix for what is a Halloween spooktacular on October 28th. So, Joseph, not too long to go in this race here. Expectations, it's going to be high attrition, we surely think.
Yeah, expectation versus... Oh, I'm in game chat. Let's address that before I speak anymore. Yeah, expectation versus reality. Expectation, probably a little bit chaotic. Drivers missing braking points, all of those usual things you expect with the challenge of going forwards and then backwards in a very short space of time. But the reality, probably just your standard race around Austria. Because the DRS zones are very, very welcoming. There'll be DRS games, there will be lunges, and there'll probably still be a fair chunk of dirty air. Because that first and second sector, kind of weaving your way uphill and the potential to understeer off the circuit, we might just have a classic F125 race, to be honest. You never know.
Well, that's a critical thing, isn't it? As the drivers are going to get themselves ready now for this race. We're not too long away now from this one. But, Joseph, before we get this one started, any early favourites for this?
I'm going to... I will punt on Thomas to win this race. I know he has stuck it on pole and therefore he is the favourite. It's just that I fancy him to become a two-time winner tonight.
Could be a good one as well. I'm expecting Venturi to potentially be on the mix here as well because they've shown the pace initially in qualifying. But no 102s to be heard of as well. A bit disappointed about that one, but 75 thousandths of a second separating the top 4. So let's see what will happen in this one. Should be an absolute cracker anyway, nonetheless. So what is your favourite? Let us know if you are watching us live here tonight. If you're not watching us live, where have you been? We've been tuning in here usually at 7:15 over on YouTube. We had a brief break, of course, over on Twitch as well. Sorry about that, folks. And here we go then. So the drivers will be getting themselves ready and raring to go here in Austria. Before we wrap this one up and get going for the race here, Joseph, I must say, any expectations for this one?
Well... I don't know. I'm still getting used to the fact they are going in reverse. It's a major adjustment, and I predict there will be 2 safety cars as a result. One for pit lane and one for an on-track collision. There you go. That's my random expectation.
Well, with the red lights rising over the Red Bull Ring and the grid is set the wrong way in Austria, the charge begins in reverse. No more waiting. Let's go racing here in Austria. And then, of course, you've got this battle here with Venturi's Thomas, who's going to want to work with Max von der Gies going into turn number 1. It's a long sweeping left-hander between the pair of them. We've got to have plenty of people going off of the circuit initially here, but Thomas holding on here from Max von der Gies. Venturi doing a really good job to hold on for their battle for P1 and P2. We've got plenty of battle happening here. Side by side, AMR and the team of IRT will go here with Vanna Spinoda and Ivan Eskrig. Ivan Eskrig electing not to put too much pressure on Vanna Spinoda. He then promotes himself up to P7 as a result. Jeroen is up to P6 here, but a great effort from the ET8 team. They're 3 and 4 respectively. A mistake here from Dirk here and are going through that top of the hill, and that's going to allow Sergio to go side by side. This is a strong battle here between SCI and between ET8 around the outside potentially here. The move is going to be certainly there, but squeezed off of the circuit here as Dirk holds on to the position for P3. They are not invincible around here when the circuit is in the wrong direction.
Yeah, the first example there of Sergio, and indeed anybody, tried to go around the outside at the penultimate corner there, what would be turn 3. Of course, because it's so off camber on that inside, you just kind of... It's a one-line corner. The car on the inside is always going to drift over to that outside line on the exit. It does make it very, very challenging to go around the outside there, but equally, making a lunge is equally tough because, well, you can't see the corner. You don't quite know where it's going to arrive and where your braking zone is off the racing line. So the first example of that challenge indeed. We're settling into the DRS train now. The only car on hard tyres is Phil. He's going for a similar approach to what he was doing in the sprint race. He went from 14th to 5th in that one without really making a single overtake. So again, he's going to wait for the race to come to him. Quantum's lost a position to Matthias Guille. Tough start still for the FRT man. Is he going to go down the inside at the penultimate corner? Oh, there's been a punt, the first of the evening. Matthias Guille into the back of White Sheep. Fortunately, his car just kind of drifted back into its intended direction. And, well, they both get away with that one. But, yeah, the first braking error at the blind corner.
And a little bit of a late breaker as well from Monza. That's Team QRT against Ivan Eskrig. He's had an absolutely appalling start, has Ivan Eskrig. He's now down into P8, down 4 positions from where he started in this race. Now, of course, track limits is going to be a critical part. Now, track limits are usually pretty difficult around this circuit in the right direction. So what's it going to be like in the wrong direction? I suspect it's going to be more of a challenge. Lorenz is getting a move done on Matthias Guille here. That is the move for P14. HR getting past the RSC man for that position, and it'll be 2 solitary points for that position if they finish where they are. Now, here's a question for you now. So the gap's starting to form a little bit here between Max von der Geest and SCI's Dirk now. Gap around about 1 second. Now, still got DRS at the moment, has Dirk, but if he ends up breaking the DRS train here and Dirk becomes the leader of that from P3 downwards, ET8 are going to swallow him up, and that is a prime position here for the Spanish outfit to cut through the deficit of 70 points going into this race.
Yeah, again, psychologically, ET8 want Ventari to do them any sort of favour this evening. A, stop Shizou from winning to kind of break that win streak that they've got going on at 2 and 4 for the total this season. But B, just to give them a chance of getting past Dirk and reversing quite a big haul of points, no pun intended, this evening, back into their favour for this championship battle. So, yeah, really interesting to see. I mean, Dirk's got it covered for the time being. He's got space to push into. He's perhaps just managing his tyres and the gap, which currently is steady at about 7/8 tenths. And get less tyre wear being 7/8 tenths back than he would be even 6-7 tenths back. So, yeah, interesting one indeed. Monza kind of in the same boat at the minute, 8-9 tenths behind. But again, as soon as that any gaps open up beyond the second, we will start to see an overtake or 2 in this race for sure.
That's lost about half a tenth, Dirk, on that last lap, but Thomas has had a bit of a lock-up going through into the penultimate corner, and as a result they've decided to switch the Ventauris around because they don't want to lose too much time, because they know they need to bridge that gap to Dirk. Max von der Geest lost time to Dirk, and as a result has invited Dirk right back into the battle, so Thomas will certainly be apologising to his team for that one. Our first pit stop of the day is Matthias Guille. It looks like he had a bit of a spin earlier on, or something has happened with the RSC man, because he was relegated down to 20th. He's now in the pit lane, and it is a fresh front wing by the looks of things for the Ferrari man. He will now leave the pit lane on a fresh set of hards.
Yeah, that was for the incident. He must have got some front wing damage from it where he hit. I can't remember if it was Misha or White Sheep. I think I said White Sheep at the time, but equally, I'll have to go back and look, because it could have been Misha as well. But yeah, they're having to repair the front wing damage as a result. Gap has kind of opened up a little bit between the 2 at the front of the field, the 2 Red Bulls, up to 7 tenths, and Dirk has kind of clawed back a couple of tenths as a result. But when you have teammates in the same boat like this, 1, 2, and then 4, 5 as well, in ET8's case, you do tend to see a lot fewer overtakes in the first stint. So going to kind of make do with this for now, haven't we? Here comes Simba Rocks 1, having a look around the outside at the final corner, which is of course a left-hander. Couldn't quite get it done. There's DRS as well on the start-finish straight, but again, that first corner is so difficult to overtake on, and a bit of an error there from Samuel Barker drifting off the track there has cost him and has picked him up a 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, and that's the first of, I'm sure, many of this particular race. Of course, a 3-second time penalty for track extension issues, even though he was going sideways. He went in too hot, my friend, and that's the reason why you now have a 3-second penalty to your name. Max von der Geest still leading the way from Ventauris. Thomas over the last lap, actually starting to pull a bit of a gap to his teammate here, telling Thomas, come on, get your skates on. We need you to be closer to me here, because if you are, and get in a position where you are closer to me, you're going to eventually break the DRS on Dirk. And Dirk has gone a little bit wide, actually. going out of the corner at the top of the hill. Very, very quick straight here. Now going downhill, gravity working in your favour. Here comes Sergio. Is Sergio going to look for the move? No, he's diving into the pits, is Sergio here. So it looks like Jeroen also doing, Monza also doing exactly the same thing as well at Team QRT. So our first pit stops of the day that are within strategy. First one going to Sergio for Team ETA. What are they cooking?
Is this a two-stop race, perhaps? I wasn't aware of it being one. I don't know if there's any sort of... they run different compounds to the usual race, or there's just a little bit more stress on the tyres. Yeah, Sergio, Monza, and indeed Samuel Barker all coming in for their first pit stop of the evening. Got a yellow in Sector 1. That's for an Aston Martin of C8 Lou for Hadrick Racing. And Onyx now putting Simbarox one under all sorts of pressure. This is where, of course, Samuel Barker has opened up that gap. There's kind of a void to be filled in that P13 position. Fana Spinoda's dropped off a little bit as well. Again, that's because of the pit stop being made by Sergio and indeed Monza. Starting to see some gaps opening up. We might see some drivers extend as a result.
Thomas is in, as is by the looks of things the second of the ET8 men. Ryderdal is also in. Fana Spinoda also in as well. So we were expecting potentially more of a one-stop in this race, but perhaps going up the hills rather than down them has caused a little bit more tyre degradation than maybe meets the eye. So as a result of that, we've seen a lot of people pitting very early to get off of these medium tyres, straight now onto a set of hard tyres. Now, will they go the distance, I wonder? This is a 28 lap stint on a set of hards. For some, 29, and for Matthias Guille, it'll be closer to 31. So it is a bit of a weird one here for these drivers. I'm expecting that surely these drivers are going to have to commit to the two-stop. Ventauri have now obviously reacted. As Thomas gets a time penalty for track extension issues. We knew that this was going to be a repeated problem, but he wanted to cover off both of the ET8 men. He's done exactly that, but he's not helping his team at all. First a lock-up, which forced Max van der Geest into getting the move done on him. Now he's got a 3-second penalty. Has that caused a detrimental effect to a potential 1-2 finish here for Ventauri? Max van der Geest doesn't care. He's in.
Yeah, well, cost himself a victory, of course, the team. It remains to be seen. Here we go then with Max van der Geest into the pit lane for a hard compound of tyre. Medium, hard, medium seems to be the likely shout in this race, although two sets of hards probably also on the cards, depending on what tyre option they've chosen. Fastest lap of the race for Sergio. Lawrence getting a 3-second tyre penalty out of the pit lane. Comes Max van der Geest, of course, feeding back in onto the racing line. And Sergio had to be wary of that. He just kind of danced around him on the exit of the corner. Cold tyres for Max van der Geest. He's now down into a net third. Sergio into the net lead because of that 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, I don't want to say that this is going from bad to worse for Ventauri, because it's still a really good result for the midfield outfit. But this is going to be a question more of what ifs here for Ventauri. Max van der Geest pitting, a lap later two laps later than Sergio gets the undercut. He may need to now get this move done as quickly as he possibly can. It's fairly critical for their strategy here that Ventauri are partnered together and are not separated with a driver in mind. They'll get the jump on everyone else in front, of course. They're thinking the likes of Misha. Here comes the move then here for Sergio, who gets the move done on Thomas. And now ETA are now leading this way regardless of the time penalty. He wants to get this one done as quickly as he possibly can, but Thomas comes straight back at him, going through into turn 1. Great move indeed from Thomas to keep that pressure on. Max van der Geest will be told to get his skates on now.
Yeah, it will be. And Thomas actually went wide there again. So if he did have kind of a leg to stand on in terms of appealing that penalty, potentially, certainly doesn't anymore. That would have been another warning to his name for exceeding track limits at turn 1. And, well, I actually didn't realise the DRS protection point lies before, right on the braking zone, to be honest. If you are ahead, and the car behind does get a second bite of the cherry to try and defend the position, which is, of course, a very good thing, much better than the double DRS zones that we tend to have. Braking then into what would be turn 3, and are we going to see another attempt at an overtake from Sergio? It's a little bit further back this time. In fact, they're just starting to open up as a result of the effects of dirty air. Max van der Geest is having a look. He was closing in at a rate of knots onto the back of the Alpine, but doesn't quite get the move done. I think they'll just kind of stay where they are for the time being, unless Sergio prioritises turn 1 for an overtake. No, he can't get it done. So we have to get creative now and thinking about how to retake the lead.
Yeah, VNT are a little bit struggling a little bit here now because, of course, they really want to work with each other, but they can't with that excellent little bit of craft here from ET8, who have now made it a Ventauri ET8, Ventauri ET8 sort of foursome at the moment here. Keeping an eye out as well on Team QRT's Monza. He's having a cracking race. Is the team currently down the standings as well at the moment? To Team QRT in P5, aren't they? So this is a decent chunk of points potentially on the cards here for Monza. Back towards the front, by the way, you've got the 2 SCI drivers and the 2 AMRs have elected to stay out on these medium tyres. So by the looks of things, these 2 teams, 4 drivers, are committing to the 1 stop over the 2.
Yeah, really interesting, and certainly still proving that it is an option in this race. Of course, we've had puncture drama in Austria before. If you remember back to WOR Season 20, the championship being decided through a puncture to Tech Brutal on that occasion. So I wonder just how long they'll stretch these medium tyres for. And of course, Shizou do not want to take any chances with punctures with the healthy championship lead that they've got at this stage. Side-by-side action at turn 1. Lawrence down the inside of Fanna Spinoda and almost off into the wall there. It's bumpy there on the runoff area that isn't designed to be run in this direction. Samuel Barker squeezes through, but still wheel-to-wheel with the Haas. Great battling for P13 in this race. They managed to sort it out as they continue to work their way up the hill and up into... I don't know what corner at this stage. What would be turn 4 and 5 in the correct direction. A sideways moment there for the pink liveried Haas of Fanna Spinoda. Japanese name and the Japanese looking livery. Here we go with Samuel Barker once again. It's a never-ending battle at this point. They're all on the brakes at a suitable time and get through, finally unscathed.
Yeah, finally getting caught with the action as well as I keep just pushing buttons. Apologies, folks. Fanna Spinoda getting closer to a battle with Lorenz here. Down the inside he will go then. This is going to be a late breaker going into this corner. They both go off of the circuit. Here comes Samuel Barker. Gets the move done and gets a double overtake on the pair of them as well whilst they're all scrapping it out. Fantastic patient racing from the QRT from the FRT driver. Fabulous stuff as the QRT driver of Simbarox 1 getting in a little bit of a tank slapper with the likes of Fanna Spinoda, and as a result of that one, Amisha also looking for this one as well. Quantum going side by side with Lorenz straight into the gravel there for Quantum as well. Lorenz really did not want to show any kind of room whatsoever for the McLaren. Got his elbows, arms and fingertips out. Absolutely no way that one move was going to be done, and it looks like Quantum now relegated to P18.
Benefit of the doubt is that we know that this track isn't designed to be raced in this direction, and that every time the drivers kind of go off the circuit, there's not much track to play with, because of course that is usually the entry to the corner, but there is less of a runoff zone. So everything looking a little bit more dramatic at this stage. As down the hill we go once again, the battle for P12. Fanna Spinoda takes far too much curb on the inside there. Is he going to have the opportunity to get this move done? Into turn 1, there he goes, Fanna Spinoda up into P12 now. Great move there from the IRT driver, trying to carry some more points for IRT this evening. They need it. They failed in Kota when they looked so good in the sprint. Well, they're on the right track now.
Absolutely fabulous stuff there as well, but Samuel Barker going wide at turn 1. That'll be another warning as he's getting more penalties coming in. Lorenz now with another time penalty to his name down in P16. I want to go back towards the front, by the way, in this little battle here as well for the likes of Ventauri, who are now battling, with a puncture here of White Sheep, who's now spun and caused a right tip at the front. And Sergio has managed to get the jump on the likes of Thomas, who hasn't got any, he has got DRS actually for that matter as well. A real mixed bag occurring there because of the White Sheep having that puncture. 13 lap old mediums and they've punctured. Surely those in front, Ivan Eskrik, Jeroen and Dirk, their tyres are going to be screaming if White Sheep has got that puncture on the right hand side. It's caught a few people napping. Sergio now leading this race here prospectively from the likes of Thomas and Max von der Gies. Gap around 10 seconds between them and Ivan Eskrik. Expectations surely therefore the front three are going to be pitting imminently.
it will raise alarm bells for sure. If they're entering that sort of stage on the tyre wear, then they will definitely be thinking about pitting, even if it's a lap earlier or two than they ideally want to for a one-stop in this race. Those tyres look absolutely shot on both Mercs and indeed even S-Krig as well. You can see, obviously, the degradation on them. The game does a good job of kind of simulating that, but who comes into the pit lane? Dirk does. Jeroen will now panic in having to stay out for another lap. Even S-Krig does as well, so potentially panic stations for Jeroen. Safety first for Dirk and even S-Krig, who have come into the pits to change these incredibly shot medium tyres.
You can definitely tell that was very reactive to what happened to White Sheep there. So White Sheep now down at the back with a fresh set of hard tyres, but of course losing all of that time as a result of that. I think it looked like a rear left puncture for the AMR driver. Jeroen will now just gently navigate around the circuit. Oh, Lorenz is retiring. Yeah, there it is. So he's out of this race here. He's frustrated with this particular race as shock is caused Joseph D'Ambrosio over there. And keeping an eye out on Jeroen, he is now very gingerly. Look at the left tyre. It's absolutely shot beyond belief. Is that front left tyre here. There'll be plenty of pickup happening as well as he now enters down now the main back straight here. Here comes the Mercedes, and surely the SCI man is pitting at the end of this lap. He has to, but he's going to have to brake a little bit earlier. Has the SCI man, because of course if he gets caught out by that inside curb, that could cause a bit of a problem, but no issue at all for Jeroen. He now enters the pit lane, and the leading drivers of Sergio, Thomas, Max van der Gies and Ryder Dahl will now navigate around the circuit on now a 9, 8, 7 and 8 lap older hard tyres respectively, as they will rise to 9, 8, 7 and 9 respectively between those drivers here. Then big one for me though here, Joseph, Thomas with that 3-second penalty. He will be reeling with himself here because he knows he's on the back foot before he even gets going.
Dirk lucky to come out in P7. Jeroen, on the other hand, even though he was right next to his teammate, he's going to have to settle for P11 and maybe P12 here. He reacts. He has to get out of the way of Quantum, who's coming through. Sensible driving there from Jeroen, because obviously you could see the rate of knots that Quantum was approaching at. But yeah, a lot of work to be done now in this race. Of course, major tyre delta right now, but an awful lot of traffic to try and pick their way through. ET8 advantageous at this point. They're finally ahead of Ventari, at least in the Sergio camp. But, of course, they have still VNT that want to win this race, and equally two rapid Mercedes trying to chase them down. So, yeah, an interesting dynamic now to the remainder of this race as we approach halfway.
Are they committing to the one stop here? I'm not so sure, you know, because those tyres now have got to go, if they are to go to the end, they've got to go 20 laps. They're currently 11 laps now for Sergio, 10 laps for Thomas, and Ryder Dahl also on 10 laps. If they're taking it another 10 laps, that takes them to 28, and an 8-lap stint on a set of medium tyres. Yeah, potentially, but you know, thinking about it, if they're going to go the distance, that they are going to have to look after the tyres somewhat here, do SCI Dirk. Now, they're obviously gaining at a rapid rate of knots thanks to that tyre delta, but when everyone switches over to a medium tyre and they're on the old hards, they're going to find themselves in a lot of trouble here, SCI.
Yeah, potentially so. It's about timing the pit stop now as well, the second stop. When do they do it? Is it when SCI arrive at the back of the train just to... Well, they hold them up for as many laps as possible? Yeah, it's really hard to judge at this stage because the gap really isn't that big. And of course, the field spreads, ignoring White Sheep, is about 21 seconds. There's... You know, you'll be pitting straight into traffic no matter what at this point. Jeroen up into P10, now overtaking Misha after he took Quantum on the previous lap. But yeah, no matter when they pit for a second time, there is going to be a problem.
Jeroen now the fastest lap of this race here for the Shazoo Steeder Igniters, currently in P10, I said, after making that move on Misha. Lap 19 of 36, we're now over halfway through this race, only halfway. It feels like we've had many more laps than this one so far. It's been a really action-packed race here. Only lost the one driver so far on what we expected to be a high attrition race. Lorenz has retired from this race in the pit lane. He had enough on his own accord here. Now, I was going to argue the point here of potentially Max van der Gies being told, why don't you just get in front of Thomas and just make some inroads here, because you're clearly the faster driver. But I'm going to be honest with you here. I don't think he is. I think he is at the moment burning through his ERS a lot more than Thomas is, and as a result of that, he appears to be faster. But I think as soon as he gets, in front of Thomas, is he actually going to put any pressure on Sergio whilst he's the one with the lowest ERS? I'm not so sure,
ET8 were getting frustrated at this, so... Well, here we go.
Here comes the move.
Lead of the race. Well, that was right on cue, wasn't it? Just something happening for the lead as we were talking about the lead. Thomas getting through there, but ET8 were frustrated about this, and they'll be even more so now because they were saying, why is the car that is on the fresher tyres of the two not in front and not kind of setting the pace here? Why are they not giving us kind of a chance to control the race? And of course they're entitled to do what they want in this situation, Venturi. But yeah, coming back to Max van der Geest, it is surprising that they kind of haven't gone set the pace, Max, on the fresher tyres, because every lap makes a difference at this point. Rijderdaal's having a little look now.
Just keeping an eye out on Max van der Geest, who gets a double lockup. He's lucky to have that car pointing in the right direction. You see, if you were to just look back at that clip, both of the tyres, all four tyres locking up and then steering to the left. So it's well caught from Max van der Geest. But again, if he's under pressure from the likes of Ryderdal, he's going to then continue to use more of his ERS. And you can see down at the bottom on the screen there, that ERS is looking very low indeed for Max van der Geest. Now, I know he is known. He's not really known for his ERS management at the moment, is Max van der Geest. This is no surprise to me. But if you look in comparison to the likes of Sergio, so much more ERS, a little bit less for Thomas, but still more than Max van der Geest. Meanwhile, Ryderdal, who's been putting pressure on Max van der Geest, has probably got the most ERS of anyone so far in the front four, as we've got another 10-second penalty here, looks like, for Matthias Guillet. He has pitted, but he's not retiring, so it looks like it's just a genuine mistake there from the RSC man, so he's now got 10 seconds to contend with. As it stands, though, the person who's under the most pressure out of them all, despite the fact that he's in this nice little tow, is Max van der Geest. Again, just not managing his ERS, and he's struggling to back Thomas up here.
Yeah, absolutely. Dirk has now arrived on the scene. Give it to the end of this straight, and he'll be back in the DRS range. So it will soon be time to start thinking about a second pit stop. Oh, talk of the devil, Max van der Geest is in, and on the fresher tyres and all. He's made that decision early to come in and potentially trigger the undercut here. And of course, he is the car without the penalties onto another set of hard compound of tyres. This will be 5 lap pressure than Jeroen and 6 laps pressure than Dirk. They're the numbers you need to keep in mind. Of course, even Eskrig involved in the fight for the win as well. He's on 6 lap old hard tyres. Monza went into the pits, as did Luke, Misha and Samuel Barker. Fana Spinoza has been in and out already. He's done a lap on his second set of hard compound tyres and rejoins in P14. So, yeah, that's what we need to think about now. Who responds on this lap? Will it be Thomas, Sergio or Ryderdal?
And I tell you what, as well, considering that it's a 21-second gap between sort of top and bottom,
here we go.
Oh, here we go. Here we've got a bit of a move happening potentially here between Thomas and Sergio going down the inside here. This is critical here because, of course, they want to be side by side. Don't want to be side by side going into a pit lane. They both want to pit here. So surely one of them's going to give up, and Thomas has elected to do exactly that, going through into the clips. He's clipped the wall. Has Sergio? They could go side by side. He's lucky to still be in this race. Oh, they're colliding going into pit lane. Oh, he's got damage. He's got front wing damage here. Has Thomas? That is very, very, very unwise from the man here, and I've got to be perfectly honest with you here. Thomas has been making mistakes hand over fist, and Venturi are going to be learning here big time as a result of this one. Thomas now with a fresh front wing. I'm not sure what happened there between him and Sergio, but they're both going to be coming out behind Max van der Geest. Fana Spinoza with the fastest lap of this race as well. Sergio now leaving the pit lane. Monza going side by side here. It looks like someone's gone off. Has Thomas gone off? He has gone off as well. What is happening for the Venturi man?
He's clipped Monza. He's just not thought about the pit exit at all. Just a culmination of disastrous errors. Yes, he got frustrated with Sergio. Definitely. Yeah, he made a mistake going into the pit lane. Yeah, he initiated a move that maybe he didn't have to, just for the kind of general respect of the race. But he's then punted into the back of him on the pit entry. I said it how it was. It was a stupid error to make. And then just no awareness on the pit exit at all. You feed out right on the racing line. Awareness totally nowhere. Maybe Monza can be attributed a little bit of the blame that he didn't open up the corner a little bit more to allow it, but Thomas needs to be more aware in that situation, not give himself damage for a start. It's thrown away a lot of points there for Venturi if the penalty wasn't bad enough already.
I'm thinking exactly of what Silo has just said in the chat, by the way. Why did he fully send it in the pit lane right behind Sergio? Sergio made that mistake going in. He obviously clipped the wall as he was turning left, and that caused him to half spin out. And just, I don't know if it's just like the racing instinct of Thomas to then just try and dive it down the inside, but you're in the pit lane. What are you actually trying to prove in a pit lane that narrow? I'm not sure, but either way, Thomas and Venturi are paying the price as a result here, and Max van der Gies, a man who has been struggling with his ERS all the way through this race, is now out on his own, and now it's opportunity knocks potentially for the likes of Sergio, who is now just 2 seconds back on a one lap fresher hard tyre. Of course, here come the next pit stops here for Riederdal. He now enters the pit lane here to give Dirk now the lead of this race. I was just about to mention about the strategies here now. For the people that have committed to the one stop here, Dirk, even Eskrig and your own, they were expecting surely those on the hard tyres on the second stint to be going a little bit longer. They're now going to be scratching their heads, and they're going to be a little bit worried now for the next 11 laps about whether they can make these tyres last. You've got to be honest.
Yeah, they should just about make it, to be honest. I think they did all the hard work on the mediums to get to the point where the hards were going to be safe.
Ooh.
So I don't fear that too much. But of course, Max van der Gies has a big gap to close, hasn't he? 10 seconds just to get to Jeroen, and that's only a 5-lap tyre delta. I don't think this is entirely achievable, you know. It will be close, definitely. And it always is when it comes to these scenarios, as the hard tyres really do start to get to their latter stages. But this is a big, big task. Certainly for Max van der Gies, then Sergio. They're not working together, mind. There's a 2-second gap between them. Thomas is out of the action here, so they can't use Thomas to try and close up. Riederdal's 3 seconds behind the next car already, and even he will hit some traffic that are on fresh tyres as well. So I don't see it, personally, but, well, 11 laps to go. Could still all be proven wrong here.
I think remember as well is that for the likes of Dirk, Ivan Eskrig and Jeroen at the moment, they are on tyres which are in a position which are not going to progressively get worse. At some point, they're going to end up falling off pretty quickly, and that's when, of course, those on the slightly moderate hard tyres will be in a better position. So I still think this is very much on for Max van der Gies. It's just a matter of when, really, for the front three, well, front four rather, of course, because IRT Phil on 11-lap-old hard tyres could actually go a little bit further on here. But the question is when will those tyres fall off? And if they do fall off, will they fall off a cliff, or will they just continue to progressively go down? Because if they progressively go down, well, the front four are in prime position, because Max van der Gies is not going to be pushing very hard because he can't. He hasn't got the energy left in the batteries, and that's only going to invite potentially Sergio into a battle. And what a race it has been for Team QRT's Monza as well. He'll be hoping that the front four also start to struggle, because Team QRT are on for a big points haul if that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, there's so many valuable points finishes for the midfield teams at the moment. QRT obviously in 5th, but they've gone 2 races without scoring at all. It's about time they found themselves in a position to be back in the points-paying positions, and so Monza has used the learnings from the sprint race, if anything, to carry himself forward and really do quite well in this race as a one-man band. Unfortunately, Simba Rock Swan crashing in qualifying, hasn't got going. They did get a point in the sprint race, so if that's any consolation to his input this evening, then I'd say that's a fairly good one. At the front of the field, Ivan Eskrig is still, again, throwing a huge spanner in the works. This inter-team battle, we've kind of just not associated him, because of course this is an SCI thing. They're looking to extend their championship lead this evening, but he could still very easily go on and do something magnificent for the team in 7th in the team standings at the moment. Filler's come into the pit lane. That will help Max, Sergio, and indeed Monza. One less car to overtake. Of course, Max won't get any DRS off of him, though, so that will hamper his potential, if anything, to reach these cars in the remaining 9 laps or so. 8 seconds to catch to Jeroen, and then 3 cars to potentially overtake.
Over 1.2 seconds, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Max van der Gies caught on the likes of Phil. So in that situation, the tyre delta starting to show its worth here, and if these tyres are now starting to fall off that cliff edge, Max van der Gies' times are only going to gain faster and faster. It was about 8 seconds when he came across the start finishing line. We're only halfway around the circuit, and the gap is now 7.3, so I do have a sneaking suspicion here Max van der Gies might be on for a little bit of a last lap dash potentially in this situation. Ivan Eskrig has just overtaken Dirk for the lead of this race out of those on the 1 stop, as it looks like Dirk is actually giving the position up to Jeroen as well. So Dirk actually relegated now down to P3 in this battle here between SCI and Ivan Eskrig at AMR. And I'm wondering here, has Dirk's tyres started to fall off a little bit? Now, looking at that front left, I'm going to be honest with you here, Joseph, it's starting to look increasingly unhealthy, and I'm wondering if Dirk has started to realise, I'm just going to have to manage my race pace here, because it looks like I'm going to struggle to get to the end here.
Yeah, definitely so. I think they might well be approaching at least 50%, if not more, at this point in time. The front left taking quite a battering around here, which is surprising. I would have thought maybe the front right would have been as well. 2 quite high-speed corners at turns 1 and 2, but equally, as you work your way through sector 2, you've got a couple of right-handers as well. So it's probably quite equal across the board for all 4 tyres, and maybe none in particular that they're having to manage a 3-second tyre penalty for Thomas as his race goes from bad to worse. And remember, he's got front wing damage from that pit lane collision with Sergio. Speaking of Sergio, he's now in DRS of Max van der Gies. What does Max do here? Does he say, look, let's work together, use the DRS off of each other to try and bridge the gap, well, not bridge the gap, close the gap a little bit more to the SCI cars, because of course our tyres are running out as well. They will be long past the point where they start to degrade quite quickly, and therefore their pace will eventually start to tail off and level out compared to those that they're chasing. So a decision to be made.
Yeah, 144 points separating ET8 and Ventauri at the moment, so I don't think it will harm ET8 to actually work with Ventauri a little bit here, not put them under too much pressure, and perhaps use the DRS to try and get closer and closer to the Suzuki Igniters. Gap now 5.8. I must admit, last couple of laps from Max van der Gies have not been particularly quick, so it's looking more and more likely, or a double lock-up again going into what would be turn number 3. Matthias Guillet now with a further 3-second penalty for him for the RSC man, really struggling out there down in P18. It's just looking like to me that, you know, has Max van der Gies sort of ran his the biggest point of this race now? Has his tyres now fallen to a point where the delta is not going to help him, and now he's just going to have to hope that the next 5 laps bring a complete degradation of the tyres on the 1-stop strategy in first, second and third? Is Ivan Eskrig on for a race victory here for AMR, especially considering AMR's fabulous performance from Ivan Eskrig at Qatar, only just managing to finish in P2. He was on for the race victory. Is he on for the race victory now, Ivan Eskrig, after what was actually a bit of a shocker of a performance last time out in the Mexico City Grand Prix? Is the reverse circuit a reverse of fortunes for the team AMR?
It could well be. Was it who took P4 in Hungary? Was that even Eskrig as well? Or was that, it might have been Thomas Covers actually? No, God, I'm getting my teams all mixed up. Yeah, it might well have been.
Comes Jeroen.
No, I'm looking at the wrong team. I'm completely lost. Don't worry. Jeroen retakes the lead. I'm getting mixed up with QRT. I've not spoke for a lap and I forgot who's who. That's just me all over. Jeroen retakes the lead over Ivan Eskrig. I was looking at QRT thinking, who got P4 for them? And no, it's AMR runabout, isn't it? The colours have thrown me off because QRT are Williams blue, AMR are white, and I still think that Alpha Tauri are still involved with this and that they're a similar shade of blue. But I'm not going to justify myself anymore. I'll throw it back to you.
All right, well, tell you what then. Well, just to make sure you're not feeling lonely, I'll call you Jerome D'Ambrosio for the rest of this race.
Is that every year?
Is that all right, Jerome? All right, awesome. So speaking of Jerome in this one, leading the way now from Ivan Eskrig and from Dirk. Now, have SCI decided over the last couple of laps just to manage their race pace and just manage overall their tyres, just so they can potentially have a little bit of a last lap dash for this 1-2. Max van der Gies now about 5 seconds behind Dirk. Another double lockup from the Ventauri man. I'm wondering how he's managing those double lockups, especially as the tyres begin to age here. Max van der Gies might be wise to just consider where his brake bias is at the moment, if I'm perfectly honest. Sergio, is it going to go for the move going into what would be turn number 1 final corner? No, not on this occasion. Still working at the moment with the Ventauri man as they start their 33rd of 36 tours of this one, but Sergio has decided he's had enough and he goes into turn 1 now in front of Max van der Gies, and ET8 have got a man up into P4. It's going to be a real but tough call here now. 5 seconds. They are going to really hope here that the front 3 and their tyres fall off a cliff here.
Yeah, 10 seconds felt like a lot at the time. I am surprised that more haven't done the 1 stop, seeing that it was achievable. I'd always go for the 1 over the 2, purely because of the traffic factor. Again, the likelihood that you won't have any DRS to kind of take and run with it. That's not always a guarantee. And so, again, there'll be a bit of a smug feeling about the 1-stoppers, unless, of course, their tyres burst, and that would be quite funny. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 1. Samuel Barker has had an off-track skirmish there, and he does get himself back underway. It's not tyre-related. He's only on 11-lap-old tyres, which is the same sort of situation that Max van der Gies is in at the moment, as he still continues his battle with Sergio. 3 laps to go then in this one. 4 seconds to catch. Unless the tyres pop, it's a no-go.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you here as well, Jerome. I do think that Jerome is in a position here to potentially take this victory, but Ivan Eskrig is keeping up the pressure here for AMR, and I'm expecting here that potentially anyway, that AMR could be on here for their first victory of the season. This assuming, of course, that they don't find any pressure from Dirk, who at the moment, I'll be perfectly honest with you here, it looks like Samuel Barker's going to retire from this session. It's looking more and more likely here that Dirk is just not finding any comfort at the moment from those tyres. You can see that front left is so aged. It's not looking lovely at all. The blistering on the centre of that tyre. How are the rears looking? Similarly as well, in a similar position here for the SCI man. It would be bitterly disappointing stuff in what will be, I hope, not again for Dirk, a tyre exploding towards the end of this race. It'll have the resemblance of what happened at Team TF10 last season for Dirk when he was racing at Qatar. Not again, surely, for the SCI man now.
Yeah, surely not. 2 laps to go in this race. And, well, just see, even Eskrig is so desperate to take an historic victory, you must say, for AMR. 7th in the championship, of course. Outsiders into every race they come in, fighting with the championship leaders and 2-time reigning champions at the front as well. Quantum versus Phil is for P10. Phil on the medium tyres. He's gone for the mediums in the final stint. He's struggling a little bit. But again, what a performance, you've got to say. Up 6 positions. Only Jeroen has gained more places from P8 to P1 in this race in another terrific drive. But they might have finally broken the sprint race hoodoo from Kota to take a double top 10 here this evening, hoping that IRT can hold on to that. Just like that, a whole lap has gone by. Even Eskrig is a little bit further away. He'll have 3 more doses of DRS on the final lap, including a short dash to the start-finish line. Here we go then, the final lap of Austria in reverse.
Here we go then, the last lap of this first round of reverse circuits then, going into this turn 1. Of course, you want to try and keep it planted. White Sheep with a 3-second time penalty down the back on the soft-tyred lap. They're down in 18th place. His race is all done and dusted. Is this going to be a Team AMR sandwich, though? Even Eskrig will try and get as close as he possibly can to the back of Jeroen. 20-lap-old hard tyres they now are for those front runners. Are the tyres going to hold on? At the moment, it looks like Sergio's not making any inroads whatsoever, so the hard tyres have lasted the distance. The question, though, is Jeroen. Has Jeroen got all of this pace to manage? He has gone a bit wide, actually, at the top of the hill here, so this is an opportunity, potentially, for Ivan Eskrig to get closer and closer and closer and closer, potentially getting for the late breaker, going then at the top of the hill, and then on the power as early as you possibly dare. Dirk has a 3-second penalty. That could invite Sergio right back into the mix. He's on the brink. Here comes the move then. Is Ivan Eskri going to have to settle for P2? Or can he go for a lunge going into the corner? He doesn't look like it's going to be enough. And what will be another classy victory here for SCI, who comes across the line to take the victory here. Ivan Eskrig missing on P1 again. Dirk finishes in P3 from Sergio, who misses out by just 1/10 of a second. Max von der Geest from Monza. There's Luke for RSC and Ryderdal in P8. ETA have dropped points once again, and SCI extend their lead in this championship by a considerable margin. Going into round number 8, I have a gut feeling here, SCI, with only, is it not even halfway through the season in this race, has already got one hand on the trophy.
That's a statement victory, isn't it? It's a massive, massive victory. Why the majority of the field went for a 2-stop, handing SCI the win on a silver platter with the 1-stop. Of course, credit to Ivan Eskrig as well in P2. Gave it absolutely everything right up until the line. But questions have to be asked there over, again, the difference. What led them to the 1 more than the 2? Clearly it was possible, and I'd always go for the 1 in that situation. So, yeah, there'll certainly be a pretty hefty debrief after that one. Ryderdal leaving, of course, in frustration. That's such a huge opportunity missed for ETA. Once again, they do so well in the sprint race. They look like they're competitive. They're going to take the fight to SCI, and suddenly, well, they don't. That's all you can say about that one. Too big of a gap to close down in the end. And Jeroen from P8 taking victory. I bet he wouldn't have expected that,
yes,
even after lap 1.
And SCI continue as well with their form of 7 rounds in a row where no driver has finished less than 5th place in this battle for the victory. It's absolutely fantastic from the Shizucida Igniters, who are at the top step of this podium. Ivan Eskrig missing out again on the race victory in P2, a great result for Team AMR regardless, and then SCI Dirk rounding out the podium. Sergio finishing in P4 from Max von der Geest, Monza in P6 from Luke, and then Ryderdal in a very poor P8 for ET8. Fana Spinoda is in P9, Quantum rounding out the top 10. Then you've got Phil, Misha, Oleg, Simbarox 1, Thomas. Then you've got Lou, White Sheep, and then Matthias Guille with all of those horrible penalties. And in the end, down at the back of the field, you've got those people that, of course, DNF'd in this particular race. Those DNFers did not have a particularly clean race as well. That's Samuel Barker, who finished 4 laps down after retiring in the pits, and, of course, Lorenz finishing earlier on in this race. Let's take a quick look at the calendar. We are in for what is going to be a bit of a mixed bag, that's for certain. A big set of unknowns for a lot of drivers in this calendar, and we take a trip to the Netherlands for the reverse track, the second reverse track in this treble header on October 14th. One thing I will tell you here, Jerome D'Ambrosio, is that he had an absolute... The races that I've seen in league racing around the reverse circuit of the Netherlands, there was more opportunities for overtaking, and there certainly was more collisions, so that race is definitely not one to miss.
Well, every time I've watched any sort of racing, whether it be 5-lappers or 50% at the Netherlands in the reverse, somebody always finds the Armco that sticks out, and it's a lot more pronounced than it is Austria. There are 1 or 2 occasions where it happens. The banking's in reverse as well. DRS on that banking going the wrong way into a 90-degree left is going to be fascinating, to say the least. I'll be back next week. I'm looking forward to it. And, well, that is really our halfway marker, isn't it? And a chance for SCI to maybe bring out the cliche of we've got one hand on the title. Let's see.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the thing that they're going to be saying at the moment. So how do we wrap that one up then? So Austria reverse suggested that it was all going to be about racers who were just practicing the best, who just knew the circuit inside out. And Ventauri showed that they had the pace. It's just, unfortunately, the reason why they're in the midfield is for that exact reason. Thomas had an absolute stinker. 9 seconds worth of penalties in the end sent him tumbling down the order. Max von der Geest couldn't manage his ERS. And as a result, the Shizucida Igniters could just benefit from that one massively. A great performance as well from AMR as they managed to get one of their drivers through, Ivan Eskrig, onto the podium. Not a particularly clean one, though, for the other driver who ended up at the back on a set. I think it was a 3-stop strategy in the end for him as he moved on to a set better softs towards the end. What a fabulous race that one was. We'll be taking a trip over to the Netherlands in the reverse circuit as well. What's it going to be like going down the hill through those weavy corners before going into that long hairpin in the first, what will then be the third sector of this race? And of course, never ever discredit the sprint race that happens before it as well. Always going to be a mixed bag if anything like Austria has got anything to go by. Should be in for an absolute cracker. Don't go away. We'll be back next week for another cracking race. Take care. Ta-da.